Hey guys, real quick before we start the video, I want to direct you to the community tab on my channel. I am currently running an event for you, the viewers, to rate every single Monster Hunter monster from 1 to 5 stars. This project is going to be a bit of a run back from the 20th anniversary popularity poll and is meant to allow everyone to voice their opinion on every monster, so we can get a big picture look at how the whole community feels about the entire Monster Hunter bestiary. There will be a new poll on the community tab every single day at noon Eastern Standard Time, and all polls will remain live on the channel, so you can answer any of them at any time. You will not miss out if you miss the poll for the day. I will be updating numbers all the way from now until the end of October when the last polls have been run, and in October or November, we're going to have a massive video event where your comments will be read, all the numbers will be crunched, and the monsters will be reordered based on how you all voted. Every vote on every poll matters, and anyone has a chance to have their comment read in the video itself. And if you want to help me get more data and reach the broader Monster Hunter community, I'd appreciate a like on this video and, maybe hit the subscribe button to help this channel grow. It'll put me and this project in front of more eyes. Okay, no more YouTuber CTA shilling. Here's the video you actually clicked on. Thank you. Hey folks, how you doing? How's the start of your week going? How'd your weekend go? Hope you're doing well. So what we're gonna be doing today, something, little unscripted, little light. It's kind of off the cuff, bit of discussion-y. We're gonna talk about Wilds a little bit more. So we got 2 trailers over the course of 2 weeks. 2 really good trailers, but at the same time, 2 trailers that were lighter than I thought they were going to be, and we're going to talk about that. But, now that we're a couple of days out, we got a big chunk of information, I think it's a good time to just kind of talk about what we really think about it. Now that, it's marinated a little bit. We're right off of the immediate hype train, and now we got time to really kind of, look at it, watch the trailers a whole bunch of times, really think about everything. I've read a whole bunch of opinions online and just kind of, bounced them against what I already thought. So we're going to talk about it. And I got to say, right off the bat, right off the jump, I am buying into this pitch that Fujioka and Tokuda have, their vision for this game, their direction. I'm into it. I've bought into it. We'll see about execution and everything, but what they're presenting, what they seem to have envisioned for this game, I'm a fan of it. And what that vision really seems to be is something that's grungier, it's grittier, it's more dangerous. Not gritty, not so much in kind of like a grim dark type of thing, but if you've watched any of the streams or anything, this ain't the newest of opinions on my end, but World is something that was, it was very majestic, it was very grandiose, it was very big, it was very kind of grab you by its beauty and pull you in and really just kind of pull you in with the wow factor. I think my buddy Austin put it the best way, is that World is the first couple of scenes of Jurassic Park when they're piddling around in the Jeep and they see the sauropods and whatnot and the music's playing and everything. Wilds looks like everything that happens once the power goes out and the fences go down. And I like it, man. I like it. As much as it feels and it doesn't feel like a sequel to World in some, it very much feels like an expansion on it, an evolution of it, but it isn't going for the exact same thing. World is gonna be 6-7 years old by the time that we hit Wilds coming out, so we kind of want to grab that same exact tone, that same exact style. We're gonna go for those same exact emotions. No, Wilds is it's hitting on a different note. Its World feels dangerous, it feels uncouth, it feels barbaric, it feels kind of savage. It feels like you gotta be smart or you're gonna get crushed. And I'm interested in that. I'm very interested in that, because as we're talking about with some of the mechanics, and at least some of our ideas of some of the mechanics, a more difficult and trying Monster Hunter might be a good idea, especially, off of the backs of World and Rise, which, let's be honest, we're a little bit on the easier end, especially, base game Rise especially was much easier than I was hoping it to be. It was one of the reasons that game didn't really grab me particularly well. This game looks a little bit more rough and tumble, and I like that. I like the look of the world. I mean, granted, we've only seen the one map, but, we had a bit in one of the trailers of, the Doshaguma, busting into the village and whatnot. It's probably kind of some kind of cinematic set piece. I don't think it's going to be a rampage type of thing. It doesn't seem safe here. The big animals, the bosses are in packs, and you're going to have to try and, either square off with them or figure out how you want to separate them. There's going to be a bit of an approach, because it looks like, you go into that blind, you just go rushing into a group of 6 by yourself playing solo, you're gonna get beat down pretty bad. And you know what? I kind of like that, man. You either gotta play smart or you gotta play in a group, you gotta be resourceful. I feel like this game might be something that really kind of peaks in multiplayer, right? So you have your group of 4 hunters, you go out into, what's it, like the windswept plains or whatever? You're going out there and, you have your group of 4. And like, all right, we got a group of 4. We got 4 guys. We don't have to be super careful. So, there's the herd of Doshiguma out there. We can just kind of take that on as a group. One of us individually is enough to handle one. So you got like 4 on 4, 4 on 5, kind of like back to back with your group of guys. You're hunting a bunch of the Doshiguma all at the same time. And the fight kind of just like traverses out in that big desert region a little bit. And then you have, from what we saw in the second trailer, that group of Balahara start to show up. And then everything just kind of descends into madness. So I'm wondering if moments like that are gonna exist, because that really seems to be kind of what the game is marketing itself as, is, right off the rip, hunting is a dangerous profession. But now you have monsters, big monsters, the boss monsters, they're hunting in packs, they're attacking in packs. But now you have like this wildness factor, this chaos of everything of there are other packs out there. There's dynamic weather, there's dangerous weather out there. The small monsters are dangerous and whatnot, and they attack in packs. And they're not just dangerous to you, they're dangerous to each other. They're fighting each other. The world feels hostile. This game seems to really kind of be geared up to create these really magic moments. At least in like some of the earlier moments of the game, at the very least, everything just kind of descends into madness and things swap on a dime, and the world feels like it's breathing and it's dangerous and it's dynamic and things are out to get you and whatnot. And these battles can descend into these just like territory wars between you and animals and other groups of animals. It looks like it's very possible. We'll see, obviously, because that sounds incredibly ambitious. But you remember from like trailer 2, they showed a turf war of, you had a Doshiguma out in the sand, and then you had like 3 Balaharas attacking it, with 2 of them engaging in a turf war. And then, you had a cutscene where you had a whole herd of the Doshas being dragged under the ground by the Balaharas. So, how authentic is that going to be? And from the looks of it, possibly quite authentic. It very much seems like Tokida has a vision for Monster Hunter of that chaos factor, that things shifting around and changing. It is a big component of world where, you're locked in the one-on-one battle, and then, Basilgeuse shows up, Deviljho shows up, Rathalos just comes up out of the trees while you're fighting Anjanath or something like that, you know what I mean? That seems to be something that he's really kind of going for, is just the wild chaos of nature interfering with the battle, and then how you're gonna go about doing that. To kind of bounce off of that a little bit, here's the question, is like, how much is that involved? How major is that going to be? Because like I said, I feel like this game might really shine in multiplayer when you have the manpower to kind of deal with the chaos and kind of stonewall that chaos. When it comes down to single player, I'm interested in how the game is going to handle itself with that level of stuff on the field. Because, one-on-one is definitely much different, especially if your monsters are going to be in these big packs. But it seems like the game's going to be having the options to separate the large monsters from one another. Seems like some of the cutscenes are going to deliberately set you up in one-on-ones instead of on groups. It looks like it's going to be part of it. So I'm guessing there's going to be ways to break things off and go one-on-one. There's also going to be packs. Probably going to be a little bit of like on the ground in the field strategy that you have to employ, which I'm a fan of personally. That's something that I really liked about the endemic life in Rise and Sunbreak, is that you can do a little bit of preparation with knowledge of the map, that you can go out and gather these little animals and have them fight for you, and you know what circumstances they're going to be really good in, blah, 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 that kind of thing. I like that in the field prep work. Some people don't. I know they want to go like right into the fighting and everything. That's not the biggest thing that, say, like a speedrunner is a fan of. I definitely get it. If you're just going like right for the parts, then, maybe it's a bit of a hindrance, it's a bit of a distraction, but I don't know. In terms of like the creation of a game and those kinds of things, and the fleshing out of an environment, the fleshing out of a world, the making this thing kind of feel alive, the addition of strategy and everything, I do like it on that grounds. But, if you're tackling the game in a certain way, I could see it potentially being annoying. So I am curious how this game is going to handle in terms of single player. I can imagine there being a lot there for a singular person to handle. It's going to come down to execution, but I see what they're going for, and I'm very excited to run this game in groups of 4 and just see what happens and see where the fights are going to go and whatnot. The other thing I've kind of noticed, if you're looking at like the first trailer, there's a couple of animations where you have the herds of Doshiguma going, but you'll have like one of them is attacking you. The others seem to be kind of stationary and just kind of doing like a taunt, basically just like roaring at you. So I'm wondering if the pack AI is going to be a little less voracious. Like you're supposed to really kind of be like singling out and getting one at a time, or just one away from the pack and taking care of that. But if you do get caught up in a pack, it's not like they're all going to always be attacking you full tilt at all times. So maybe the group AI is going to work differently than the singular AI. Perhaps it's going to work a little bit different with multiplayer. Again, this is something that's going to be very execution heavy. I like the vision quite a bit, but I can see where something might get a little bit annoying, something might get a little bit bogged down, something might get a little bit cluttered. So I want to see it in action. I really want to see a real hunt, a solo hunt, a hunt with a herd, a hunt with multiplayer. There's a lot of variables here that I definitely want to see fully in action. And it's a couple of things that I'm like, I have questions about. I have, I guess I could say apprehensions about. I'm not particularly pessimistic about this game at all, but there is stuff that are like, all right, cool, I like your vision. I really like your vision. You gotta show me, right? I feel that about like the packs and everything, and multiplayer and single player, and how AI differences are gonna be and chaos is gonna be, and how much control you're actually gonna have over a fight. Because sometimes you just want to get in and get out. You want to get your parts. Like the immersion is cool. It is really cool. But by hunt number 50, I've had my immersion, right? Maybe I'll go back and do it on my own time, but dude, I just need that rare drop, right? So how is that gonna differentiate? Like if it's all chaos all the time, completely uncontrolled, always herds, how much is that gonna take away, right? So, I just gotta see it. I just gotta see how much the control comes in, how much you can actually get into the 1v1s and everything. Because sometimes it's what you need to do. The other thing, just kind of bouncing around, because we're just kind of going off the dome, is while we're talking about apprehensions, kind of talking about the focus mode and everything, it seems strong. And the Sacred also seems very strong. It seems like the players have a lot of big options. So we're gonna have to see it, right? The Sacred in particular, I'm a little bit concerned of, because you have the mounted combat, you have being able to fire off bowgun shots off of the back of the Sacred. We know that you're gonna be able to heal and sharpen off of the back of it. We know that it has effectively a version of the Wirefall where you can whistle while you're on the ground and it'll come and pick you up. That's powerful. Those are very powerful options. The Palamutes in Rise were quite strong. You could sharpen off the backs of them, you could heal off the backs of them, and they could just run. So you could run circles around the monster and just get your weapon sharpened off, hop off. I didn't even do it that much because I usually ran speed sharpen because it was a 1 slot in Rise. So it isn't even something that I exploited all that much, but I do recognize how powerful that ability was. So, I'm a little concerned, because I think what they definitely could do is, lock some things like sharpening, like healing, like some attacks to the Sacred's walking speed and not its running speed. I think someone pointed out to me that it seems like when the Sacred is running and they were able to fire off the heavy bowgun shots, it seemed like it was completely hip-fired, it was unable to be aimed, but when the Sacred was walking, they could actually, like, aim the heavy bowgun. So if that's the case, that's a nice balancing act. Another thing, with like the Sacred being able to pick you up, if there's no iframes on that, okay, that's not bad. That's something. If it's kind of slow, kind of staggering, and no invincibility, you can do. I'm apprehensive about that. The pickup, the automatic pickup, I think looks to be really strong. Though to be fair, when it does it in the trailer, the Chatacabra is not attacking you, so maybe it doesn't have any iframes. And if it doesn't have iframes, that's better. That's definitely better. So yeah, the Sacred, I think it looks strong. It also very much seems to be an option. It's like, all right, we have a whole herd you're going to need to deal with. So you're going to need to be mobile or you're going to be pummeled. So you got to be able to get on this thing's back and running around and being able to reposition rather well. Again, it seems like there's just a lot of stuff in this game. It's like, you can balance this, but balancing it is going to be tricky. The other thing is going to be focus mode. So how is focus mode going to work exactly? It's still a little vague. It seems to be you attack a certain position over and over and over again. You create a weak point, which is kind of similar to tenderizing, but it seems to be much better, much more earned, much more skillful, something that you're still going to be going for. A little less hard to control, a little bit less automatic. Hopefully the game is less revolved around it, hopefully, because they based so many skills and hit zones and everything. That was a big knock against Iceborne, is that hit zones were pretty bad if you weren't tenderizing. So I'm hoping that's not a thing. It's like you need to spam that weak point thing or your monster hit zones are going to be awful. I really hope that's not the case in this game. I really hope so. On paper, so far, it seems much, much, much better than Clutch Claw because it seems like it's a lot more work goes into it. And then, if I remember correctly, they said you create that weak point by attacking certain parts over and over and over again. And what happens is then you have options out of that with the focus mode, where you go into a stance and then you have what looks to be kind of like a big cinematic block counter, or you have what looks to be a parry with the greatsword. We still don't know what any of the other weapons do. They also had like kind of that drag slash across the body. So it seems like you put in a lot of effort to create that weak point, you get the focus mode, you have a big option out of that to kind of create a very big cinematic effect out of it. That's not really something you spam, it's something that you build up to and you earn. So then, you have the question there is like, what is the build up timing to create a weak point? How easy is it to create a weak point? I'm going to assume that there's probably going to be a skill in a game that makes that faster. If that is going to be a skill, that's probably going to be big into meta sets and honestly just kind of most sets. So how fast are you getting it? How strong are those options going to be? What kind of resources are they going to tug into? Can you just hold that focus mode stance perpetually? I hope not. I hope it like drains stamina really quickly. One option I would dig into is something that I would kind of want to see as like a frame of reference is the elemental burst counter off of Switch Axe. I really like that thing. Not that I thought that Switch Axe needed a parry all that badly, but what I liked about that attack is that you could proc it, you hold it, it drains your resources pretty damn fast. It is a bit of a resource hog, and then it is a parry rather than a counter hit. It does a ton of damage if you manage to pull it off, has a lot of benefits if you manage to pull it off, but at the same time, if you flub it, it cuts into your resources pretty bad. And for that reason, I thought it was a really, really cool attack. So if this is something, the focus mode, it eats into your resources, it's hard to obtain, big payoff, difficult to kind of land, then I'm kind of sold, because, having a really powerful option that has some flaws to it, has some potential backlash to it, I think that can work much, much, much better. What encourages me on this a lot is looking specifically at, like, the greatsword counter hit. If you remember, the paw comes down from the Dosha Guma, and it's not like a rise counterattack, where the attack lands, and then the weapon goes ching, and then, the attack goes off. The greatsword starts to move before the paw comes down. So it seems to be a parry rather than a counter hit, which is encouraging to me. I think that looks substantially better than a lot of the very, very free and easy attacks that you were able to get in Rise. So what I've seen so far is encouraging. I'm into powerful options being received out of a lot of effort and a lot of work. That resonates a lot with me. So I'm not too worried, but again, I'm a little apprehensive about some of the potential execution. Hey there, editing Connor real quick. That's why the voice sounds a little bit different. There's a mechanic in Wilds that I completely forgot to talk about, bizarrely enough, in the initial recording of this video that fits in, perfectly with this section right here, and that's the weapon swapping and the dual weapon carrying that we have access to on the backs of our Sacred. So again, on paper, this looks like a lot of fun. With a guy like me, who I like to make counter builds, I like to make experimental builds, I like to have fun and just kind of tool around with stuff, and, I have a ton of time on my hands, I'm just going to mess around and make a bunch of crap, whether or not it's good. This looks like a lot of fun for me. I very much question how skills are going to work, how you're going to be able to build your armor sets around having multiple weapons. I feel like you're going to have to kind of try and factor those things in, and maybe kind of have to like pick and choose between certain skills that are going to be really mandatory for your builds, or maybe you want to build weapons that are very compatible with one another skill-wise. What kind of skills you're going to be able to bring on weapons to kind of try and keep the builds diversified. I have a lot of questions about how this is going to work. Again, I feel like they're building this with the intention of experimentation and having a lot of fun with this kind of stuff, and people bringing together a whole bunch of wacky creations. So, you bring like elemental attack up Hunting Horn, you swap over to Sword and Shield while you have that buff. You bring sleep dual blades with you to get quick sleeps, and then you bring high raw greatsword or something like that. I bet that's kind of what they're banking on. And then the interesting question is, what comes around in a meta sense? Because if you're very limited in your skills, a little bit of a worry for me is how homogenized in pure crit are the best sets in the game gonna be? Is that really all you're gonna be wanting to run? And you know what? That comes down to a couple things. One, that comes down to preference, right? So you are completely entitled to run the best options or not run the best options. And if you're gonna, you're gonna ruin that game for yourself a little bit, to an extent that could be on you. But I think it's also going to come down to what the end of Wilds and probably more its expansion is going to look like. Because an issue you hit with the end of Sunbreak, as much as I felt like the anomaly system had some pros to it, was that the monsters progressively got more health and more health and more health, and they got to some really, really, really massive health thresholds. So you were kind of forced to bring in as much damage as possible. And if you're focusing as much damage as possible, then your builds might get a little bit homogenized. But if it's more a situation where hit zones aren't too bad, health numbers aren't too large, and you can kind of just run with most of whatever, then, having sets that are not meta, that are just fun, that are experimental, that are kind of goofy and silly, and you're just kind of trying to play around with some certain things to get them to work, and that's a little bit more apologetic, then I think that's going to be perfectly fine. And someone who ensnares themselves in a pure crit meta is doing it a little bit more to themselves. So I'm hoping that we don't see an end of Sunbreak situation where it's kind of mandatory or that you're stacking damage upon damage upon damage upon damage. I want to see counter sets. I want to see weird mix sets. I want to see odd compromises and goofy creations. And I think a lot of people are probably going to stick around to stuff like that. But you of course have people on YouTube that are going to say like, oh, this is the best set ever, blah, 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 blah. And then you get people kicking other people out of lobbies because they don't run the sets that are on YouTube. But you know what? People are going to do that to themselves anyway. But yeah, no, I'm hoping that for the people who know the numbers and are able to kind of crack the codes to this kind of game, that they have options, that they have a lot of things that are viable, that they have a lot of things that are fun to kind of play around with. That this dual weapon system is a lot of fun to experiment with and isn't something that kind of locks you into certain options. And something to kind of cap off this whole thing, to kind of go with these apprehensions of very powerful abilities that the hunters might have in this game and how they're going to be balanced, is going back to the herds, right? And going back to how dangerous this world feels. If we have all these powerful options, focus is pretty strong, the sacred is pretty strong, weapon swapping is pretty strong, those are some really cool tools, but some really good tools, and they can potentially trivialize a couple of things. Well, if you have stuff like the pack animals, like the herds, like the chaos, like the dynamic weather, the unpredictability and stuff like that, and you have that as kind of a counterbalance system to try and keep things on their toes and keep the world feeling dangerous, and making it so that you kind of need these really strong options, then that makes me even a little bit less apprehensive, because these kind of systems exist to balance themselves out. You don't really have something quite like that in Rise, where the monsters weren't really geared to fight against wire bugs, especially initially, and then kind of came around to eventually that happening. If the monsters are very dangerous and the world is very chaotic and you have other roaming bands that could come and infiltrate your hunt, then those very powerful tools and options might become particularly mandatory, and they're what give you the fighting chance instead of being this thing that you use to completely dominate. And again, people are going to get very good at this game. People are going to know the math. People are going to dominate. It's going to happen. I'm hoping it's not everybody running the same thing all the time, and that some of the options are brain dead. Strong is fine. I don't want something to completely trivialize the fights. And some of the stuff on paper does sound very cool, but very strong. So if the monsters are particularly dangerous, the world is particularly dangerous, and you have all that stuff packaged together, then that kind of give and take, that yin and yang, that push and pull, I think will do this game a lot of favors to prevent it from being too easy to crack in half. So those are some extra thoughts. We're going to kick it back over to pre-editing Connor. There's a lot of stuff I need to see it. And that's my big thing. The only thing really kind of holding me with Wilds, and I'm not jumping out of my pants for it. You're presenting me with a lot of stuff that looks really crazy and really fun. You just gotta show me how it all works together, how it relates to one another, how it blends together. Because I can see stuff that could be kind of obnoxious potentially, really overpowered potentially, but if you balance it right, I think you have something really special here. And I do trust the developers. I know the 5th generation went through a fair bit of growing pains and some options that were really OP. I mean, to be fair, that's not something that's super alien to Monster Hunter, slime element, insect glaive in 4th generation, heavy bowgun underwater, OP options do exist in Monster Hunter. I'm sure some of this is probably going to be a little bit more powerful than it should be. I'm just hoping it's nothing that's like brain dead and nothing that's going to like super homogenize every build in the game. You know what I mean? I'm just looking out for that. And the developers do a good job with that, then I think we're golden. So yeah, no, I want the focus mode to be high effort. I want it to be resource taxing. I want it to be very skill based. I want you to feel like you earn it every single time instead of just waiting for your wire bugs to recharge so you can knock off your counter hit. I want it to feel earned. I want it to feel big. Whenever that big greatsword block thing hits, I want to feel that like every single time, or as close to every single time as you can. I want those weak points to be tough to make. I want those battles with the herds to be very dangerous and that you really have to work for it. I want the invasion of other monster packs to be a thing that you can deal with. I want these big fights between multiple monsters and multiple hunters in multiplayer to feel just like absolute chaos going on. I want all that, and I want it to feel good. And I think that I trust the developers to get it to work. But I do have those precautions. So let's talk about some other stuff, right? Let's go for just like the monsters. So Doshaguma, Chatacabra, Balahara, and our mystery thunder railgun wyvern. I like them all, personally. They're quite different. They are not strictly Monster Hunter, if you know what I mean. They have a bit of an ugliness to them, a bit of a grunginess to them, a bit of a savagery and a barbarism to them. Chatacabra a little bit less so. He's a little goofy. He's funny looking. He's got the big cartoony eyes and he's slobbering all over himself. And he's a big frog dude with Garen Golem skeleton, which I really like. I like seeing familiar classifications with unfamiliar skeletons on it. I really like that a lot. But Doshaguma is just this big fugly beast of a bear lion thing, and you got Balahara's this nightmarish clam-mouthed graboid drill snake living out in the desert. And we haven't had like the best look at the railgun wyvern yet, but he's really sick looking, very slick looking, kind of gnarly looking, super duper cool dude. It's not like strictly cool factor, they're not particularly cute. They're very rough and tumble and big and burly. They like Karatanoth are kind of cute looking. You have like the goats and whatnot. You have a couple of monsters that are a little less barbaric looking, but a lot of the big bosses are spooky. They're scary looking. They're tough. And I like that. I wonder if that's just going to be something for like the Windswept Plains. I think that's the name of it. If it's just going to be for our desert map, if that's going to trek over into our other locales, how that's going to go around. But I do like the creature design. It is quite different though. It's quite different from Monster Hunter. Though I feel like, you bring in your Wraths in here, your Diabloses in here, your Barroth, your Tigrex, blah, 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 all that stuff. It's not like they're going to look out of place, but like the art direction with some of these guys it's different. It's definitely different. And again, it feels like I was talking about with the tone. I'm glad that it doesn't really feel like World. Not tonally, at the very least. It's quite different. But I'm very interested to see how the returning roster is going to look compared to these new monsters, how they're going to act compared to them, how they're going to change. Because these animals that we're seeing in Wilds do a lot of stuff. So I'm very interested for the returning cast and what they're going to be able to do and how they're going to interact with their environments. Which one of those are going to be running in packs or in duos? Like, for a fact, Rathalos and Rathian are going to be hunting together. But people have been talking about Gammoth and them going in herds with Popo and whatnot. You have Uragons, which are notoriously herd animals. So, how are we going to deal with some of like the big meaty bosses being able to rummage around in herds? Because it's kind of looking like Doshaguma's probably going to be like Anjanath tier difficulty. Balahara's not that big. I can't imagine that they're going to be that powerful individually. I mean, if you remember from the first trailer, we see one of them get ragdolled by a Doshaguma. Chatacabra doesn't look to be that big. So, how are we going to size up with like the power players being these big herd monsters? I'm very interested. there's so much I feel like we don't know, right? For the 3 trailers that we have and a lot of the stuff we've seen, this game still feels very mysterious to me. There's a lot of stuff I'm very interested to see how it's gonna work, how it's gonna blend together, how it's gonna play. Because these Wilds monsters, man, they do a lot of stuff that none of the other monsters do. They have a lot of dynamic behavior. They have a ton of personality. There's just so much that you can observe them doing. And I bet there's like a lot of idle stuff and combat stuff and behaviors that we really still haven't seen that much of. I feel like I still like don't know these monsters that well of like what they can do. So we take the familiar monsters and like how are they gonna change in this game? And how much of them are we gonna get? You know, Wilds is gonna have a pretty long development cycle. I feel like the monster roster is still gonna be pretty chunky. And you know, with the amount of stuff that's in the RE engine from World and Rise and whatnot, you know, they have a lot of assets in there that they can start to port over. So we might have a pretty hefty monster roster. I'm pretty surprised that we really haven't seen any of the returning ones. I thought that trailer number 2 was going to show off the Wraths for certain. Though, at the same time, I saw a couple of people talking about this, that, you know, trailer number 2 was like a little whelming for some people. I gotta be honest, I think that trailer 1 and trailer 2 are basically kind of just like one big mega trailer. You know, I doubt this was like a last minute thing, but Wilds closing out 2 presentations back to back over the course of like 8 days. I feel like that wasn't the original plan, and I kind of feel like trailer 1 and trailer 2 were kind of chopped in half a little bit and given a couple of like extra bits here and there, you know what I mean? Like this really feels like it's all a one trailer, especially because trailer number 2 really didn't show us any new mechanics, any new weapons, any of the village. Really just kind of showcased one new monster and then teased another. I think trailer number 2 is really kind of just like part of trailer number 1. You combine those together, that's a really good 5 minutes of new stuff. I'm very intrigued by what we haven't seen. What we have seen looks really cool. You know, I want to know more about what we do know. What we haven't seen is very interesting to me because we have 3 trailers and we only have 1 returning monster that we've had a glimpse of, a good look at 3, a glimpse at a 4th, 1 map, no village, and a couple of characters. Barely any armor sets. I feel like we just really don't know anything about this game. I'm sure Gamescom is going to give us a good amount of information, but if the marketing stopped here and the game was coming out in August instead of like continuing to be marketed after August, I'd be hooked. Like I am very much curious about what we do not know. What is a jungle map going to look like in this game? What's a tundra map going to look like in this game? What is a volcano map going to look like in this game? What's the dynamic weather in those going to look like? What's going to change in that? Is you going to have an erupting volcano that creates these like rivers of lava coming down the mountainside you're fighting with? Are you going to have these like completely blinding blizzards rolling in? Are you going to have like floods in a jungle that bar off certain areas? Are those maps going to have like regions in and of themselves that are a little bit unnatural, something kind of Coral Highlandsy or Rotten Valley found within these more conventional locations? And you know, what haven't we seen in the Windswept Plains already? Because you know, you have your big open savannas, you have your vast open deserts, you have an oasis, you have these kind of craggy valley type of areas. You know, Balahara is taking us down into underground tunnel systems. I want to know, how does that all connect? How big is this going to be? What are those massive rock formations? How important are those going to be? Can you go around those, like those big mountainy areas? Are you going to have maps with like big traversable mountainy type of regions, something like the Ruined Pinnacle from Generations? Like what is this look? I still feel like I don't know what this game looks like in a lot of respects, and that tantalizes me. That excites me beyond anything. The fact that we're going to get some hands-on at Gamescom, we're probably going to see, there's probably going to be some YouTubers who fly out there and able to get some footage for you. We're probably going to get another the next trailer's got to show like some more weapons, and it has to show another map and everything, probably the village at some point. I feel like some of the mystery is going to start to go away, but like we've known about this game for 6 months, and I love that, 6 or 7 months, and I love that in these 6 or 7 months I feel like I don't know shit. I love that feeling, and I know that's gonna start to go away. But right now, where we are marketing wise, I love it, man. This game could come out in 2 months and I'd buy it. Easy. I love the mysteries. I love what I don't know. I want to see what the returning roster looks like so bad. I can't wait to see what the other new monsters look like. The 4 that we've seen so far are so sick, and they do so much stuff. and they interact with each other in such crazy ways, man. There's so much cool stuff. You know, what is Diablos gonna do in that desert? I assume he's gonna be in this game, right? I mean, it's Diablos. It's our Charizard, man. I was shocked he wasn't in trailer 2. But like, how is he going to interact with the Balaharas? Is he going to be down in like the underground tunnels fighting them? Is he going to be like killing those guys for sport? Do the other animals like run it? Like, how are Apexes like Diablos, like that Railgun Wyvern, like Rathalos? How are like small monsters and minor boss monsters going to react to the much stronger animals coming into the territory? Are they going to like break off and flee? Are they going to try and stand their ground a little bit? Are you going to have like group turf wars of several Doshaguma fighting against a single Diablos, like you have multiple Balaharas fighting against a single Dosha? I love this, dude. What are they going to do? I keep saying it, man, but like, this is so much stuff that I don't know. I've never been so intrigued by the marketing of a Monster Hunter game. Not World, definitely not Rise. They weren't shy about anything in that marketing. They weren't shy about a single thing. They're holding stuff back. It's going to be a question of how long they want to hold stuff back, because we got Gamescom, we got Tokyo Game Show then in September, and then there might be something, but I think it's going to go from Tokyo Game Show right to the Game Awards. Game Awards is probably going to be like the final maybe trailer, and then we'll go into probably the release in, I think, probably March. That's another thing, though, that I've been thinking of is, with how shy the marketing seems to be, you know, and how ambitious the game seems to be, there might be a % chance that the game might come out a little bit later than we're anticipating, because they just have a lot of stuff that they're still working on. Like, we may have only seen one map because there's really just kind of one map that's done. That might be possible. I don't know, they've probably been working on this game for a very long time at this point. I'd assume a lot of work is done. I feel like it's not impossible that it might come out next summer. I don't know, people don't want me to say that, but I am kind of wondering if we haven't seen a ton and we don't have a release date yet because it's going to come out a little bit later than we're anticipating. I feel like summer is not impossible. March definitely seems a little bit more likely, though. I feel like. I'm hoping. I don't want to wait too long for this thing. This thing looks so cool. Yeah, man, I feel like there's so much I don't know. We've only seen 2 weapons. We haven't seen the village. I barely know what the plot of this game is. We have 3 trailers. I love it, dude. I love it. It's so fun. This is so much better than Rise's marketing campaign. Cause like Sunbreak, man, like I was excited. Like I was gonna get Sunbreak. It really took like the Espinask or Magala trailer for me to get really excited about that game and to be like kind of locked into getting it. But like when I got it, I wasn't like, I was excited because it was Monster Hunter, but I wasn't buzzing this much. I was not buzzing this much. Like I said, like some of the mystery's probably going to be gone by the time that we hit the release and whatnot, but I'm just, I'm in it, man. 3 trailers and I feel like I barely know what this game's about. And that's so cool. That's so cool. Crossplay's big. Crossplay's wicked big. That was a #1 thing for me. That was a big thing for me. There's a couple of other friends that I have that are on PC, not on PlayStation. There's a couple of guys I'd love to get into this game that are big PC guys. And now, like, if there's a chance I could get them in on it, because us playing on PlayStation meant some of my friends were really not all that interested. But we'll see if that shifts now that the game's going to be crossplay. I feel like I'm going to have a nice big group of people in like my actual like inner friend circle that's going to be wanting to play. Of course, I got like you guys like on the community Discord and everything. We'll totally get a couple of hunts in and whatnot. Crossplay's big, man. Crossplay's wicked big. I'm super excited about it. I didn't really have any doubts, but I was a little nervous until we actually heard about it. But, you know, it was kind of a no-brainer. You know, it's in Street Fighter 6, it's in Exo Primal and all that stuff. Not shocked, right? Dude, what are the other weapons gonna do? What the hell does Switch Axe do in this game? What does Gunlance do in this game? What the hell does Charge Blade do in this game? I know it's gonna be like a part of like the Slinger Hook ability and not like its own thing, but you had like the Greatsword doing the over-shoulder frontier running for one of the big attacks and whatnot. That's so crazy. Are we gonna get frontier monsters in this game? That'd be so cool. Maybe. I don't know, maybe like 1 or 2. I feel like it's not going to be a ton. There's like 30 of them that I want in there. But, you know, maybe like 1 or 2. Some of the monsters in trailer 2, that Railgun Wyvern, man, that looks so sick. I thought it was Bracky for a second, you know, when he kind of had like he has like the purple ends on the wings. Seems to be like a Seregios, Rathalos type of ordeal, but he walks on his wing arms, kind of like Astalos does, where he has like much more strength in that part of his wings, walks around on a little bit more. So that's interesting. That's a cool thing to do with that skeleton. The thing where he does with like the railgun ability, where like he fires off the lightning strikes him, like the lightning runs through his body, he shoots it out through his horn, and then his horn seems to like break apart and retract on his body. I really gotta get a good close with that dude. You have like a signifier for an attack cooldown on that thing. That's really sick. He also looks massive, by the way, because he was huge compared to Doshiguma, and Dosha's huge. So, like, how big is he gonna be? And that's some, like, Railgun Seregios Magala Thunderbird looking thing. Balaharo is another thing that was really exciting to me, because he's, like, up, suspended on a big rock, like, coiled around it, firing off attacks at you. He coils through the ground like Agnactor does. And, you know, a lot of people have been talking about it, but he's a Leviathan who is slithering around on the ground with his belly touching the ground. It is sand, right? So you can maybe kind of forgive a little bit of clipping with sand, but, that's why Laggy and Agnactor weren't in 5th gen. That's the reason. And it's right there. He's doing it. That's the reason they're not in those games, and he's doing it. And that ground was like that he was standing on wasn't flat. So are we getting those guys back? I feel like at this point we're probably not getting underwater. I feel like that's a big surprise to save for trailer 4. We might get Laggy on the ground with like, I bet they might still go with like the semi-submerged aquatic combat that you have like Somnicanth and Geratodus. I feel like that might be a thing for like a jungle map or something like that gets flooded or something. It'll be swimming around in there and they'll fluff up his grounded moveset a little bit. I feel like underwater is gonna probably a wash for this game. Extremely likely at the very least. Though if they wanted to be like nonchalant about underwater, that'd be crazy. Yeah, no, there's a good chance Laggy might be in here, man. He might be in here. Not on this map, I don't think. Maybe. Agnactor too, because Balahara's doing stuff that both of them did. So, I don't mind the Palico talking. That's fine. The voice is fine. You know, it's cutesy, but it could be worse. It could be way worse. And as far as we've seen so far, she's not mouthing off puns every 15 seconds, so that's appreciated. I gotta imagine there's probably gonna be like a dialogue slider in there somewhere where you can set it to just meows and whatnot. The voice could be worse. The puns could be worse. It's a little cutesy. I know, like, my friends don't love it. I think it's fine. Your Hunter talking in the cutscenes, I really like that a lot. I've talked about this a couple of times, but, like, you have a story like Rises where you're supposed to be like this important character that's very, very familiar with the NPCs in the game. They're like, oh man, you're part of the family, like we've known you for so long. You're so important to us, blah, 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 blah. And then your character's like, It's dumb, man. Like, I don't believe that person is important, right? Because it's not a person. It's a plank of wood that doesn't do anything. Or he hunts for you. He's just a killing machine with no personality, no nothing. Not that I think, like, the hunter in this game is going to be some great character. I think it's still going to be fairly self-insert-y, and the dialogue's going to be mostly functional. The fact that it's, like, an actual character that, like, talks and emotes and interacts with other people and whatnot, even if it's kind of a stiff character, I'll take that over something that, like, doesn't talk. Dialogue for the male and the female characters sounds good. We're gonna see how many voices that they have. I'm very interested in what the plot is gonna be. It definitely seems to be a little bit more story intensive than some of the past games. You know, it's still gonna be Monster Hunter, so it's not gonna be like a Sony type of story game, right? Where, you know, it's gonna be climbing sections and linear hallways and whatnot. But I feel like it seems like the characterization and the plot is going to be a little bit more intensive than it has been in the previous games, maybe at least by like a bit. I feel, you know, obviously the gameplay is still going to hold over for the most part. Oh yeah, no, if it's a good story, I'll take a good story. Sure, why not? It seems to be some kind of mystery, some kind of commission out into some kind of mysterious uncharted area. It's looking like it's research commission, but we don't know if it's New World or if it's somewhere else. Seems to be like the research commission is going to be like a bigger branch. You know, who knows over here if we're going to see anybody from World and Iceborne, or if it's just going to be like the research commission is kind of like a bigger organization within the guild now. It seems like there's a lot of 4 Ultimate DNA in this game with the sand ships, with Gemma, who's probably going to be Little Miss Forge from 4, with that guild official who looks like he might be the Ace Lancer. You know, sand ships, I'm praying for a Moran to come back. Please give it, that needs to happen. I really want to see a Moran come back. But like the 4 DNA is really cool. We'll see, maybe we'll get like a Magala or something in here. That'd be neat. It is Force flagship. Seregios is probably a pretty safe bet because of how deserty this map is. And, you know, flocks of monsters, you know, Seregios, that big cutscene that he had where there were flocks of them invading that countryside. Seregios would be a really cool pack monster. I think packs of flying monsters, that'd be terrifying. I want to see how that works. And Seregios was already kind of spooky in Sunbreak with how he fought, so like, yeah, man, I want to see all of it. I want to see all of it so bad. It's gonna be. I gotta cover the trailers and whatnot for you know, like this, because this is my job and everything. I gotta be careful about leaks, dude. I gotta stay away from those. I gotta stay off of fucking subreddits and whatnot. If there's gonna be secrets in this game and the marketing is gonna stay relatively coy, I gotta stay away from those fucking things. I need this game, dude. Oh, I guess something else, dude, because you know I love music. The music in this game sounds awesome. Like we've had maybe like 3 tracks, maybe like cut a bits like 2 or something, hard to tell. Sounds like we probably have the battle theme for the Windswept Plains. We probably have the main theme. The music sounds massive in this game, man. It sounds huge. And it feels like nice and like crisp too. Like the mixing is very good. The mixing is great. It sounds sharp, it sounds intense, it sounds very thick, very sharp, very crisp, because that was something I didn't love about some of the tracks in Rise. Is it felt a little fatty. It felt a little round. It didn't feel quite as snappy. That was something Rise had a couple of really, when they had tracks that capitalized on that, it was good. But some of the tracks really kind of didn't hit that. I didn't love it. This one's got the music I like. It is big, it is massive, it is sharp, it is also like, it's grandiose, but there's also kind of like, especially in the track in particular in trailer number 2, almost kind of like a somberness to it, kind of like a slowness to it, almost kind of like a bittersweetness and like the horns and everything, yet also like big and triumphant, but it matches this not overtly whimsical tone that the game is going for. You know, it's a little darker, it's a little bit more violent. The map battle themes sound really good in this game. What I assume is the main theme sounds super good. I'm very stoked to hear the proof of a hero for this theme. There were some monster remixes in Rise that I didn't love. There were a couple of monster theme remixes in World that I thought were a little hit and miss. I'm very interested for monster theme remixes from the classic games in this game, because this has a soundscape that I really enjoy. I think that's gonna cover it. I've been we'll see how long this actual video is gonna be, but I've been rambling for about 50 minutes. I think I've covered everything I want to talk about. So yeah, I have a couple of apprehensions. I have stuff that I need to see how it works. I'm big on the vision. I appreciate the vision. I right now I'm with Tokuda and Fujioka right now. I like what they're doing. I like what they're pitching. I'm big on the shyness of the marketing. I love the marketing so far. I'm stoked about everything. I can't wait to see more new monsters. I can't wait to see more returning monsters, the weapons, the villages, the characters, the new maps and everything. And just for as little as I feel like I've seen so much of what this thing has to offer, what can happen here, what the monsters can do, what the environment can do, and I'm so stoked to see the entire scope and all the dynamics and all the animals and all the maps and all the things that change and everything. I'm so excited for the grand scope, because what I feel like I've seen everything and nothing so far, and that's a really good feeling to have with the marketing. I think it's been a very good campaign so far, and I know it's going to get filled in a little bit more as we go, but so far I think it's great. I think this massive 5-minute trailer that we got split up over 2 weeks was really good, very encouraging. I think this game is in really good hands. I can't wait to see it. I'm very excited for August. I'm very excited for Gamescom. You know, we'll cover the crap out of this thing when this eventually comes out, and we will be along with the marketing every step of the way. And of course, just in the immediate future, there's more videos on the way in the editing bay currently. So be excited, stick around. If you've enjoyed yourself, a like would be super appreciated. Feel free to subscribe if you want to see more, and we will talk to you very soon. This has been CR Volcanic or Connor. I'll see you around. Shout out to all the patrons, and special shout out to Nihilist Chimerax, Datboy Doinder Ding, Sir Newt Newt, Peaberry, Stefan Conine, Shaggy Grizzly, Pecco Plush, Daniel Delasarte, and Call Sign Shadow. Thank you very much, everyone.